Hello, Molweni Sanu Hujambo. I'm Thembekile Mrototo, and this is Unwrap Africa, where every week we focus on the latest news, trends, and successes of the African continent. Siyaqhaqha. As always, we want to hear your thoughts on the issues affecting Africans across the continent. And tonight we're asking, what do you make of the situation around Madagascar being suspended from the African Union following a military coup there? We'll take your thoughts on voice note. The WhatsApp number is +27 78 459 1897. You can also find us on Facebook, SABC Unwrap Africa, and on X we're at SABC News_TV. For now though, a look at the main stories from the continent this week. Kenya's former Prime Minister and perennial presidential candidate Raila Odinga, whose populist campaigns rattled authorities and gave him an outsized influence on political life in the East African country, is being laid to rest this weekend. He died of a heart attack in India earlier this week. The African Union has suspended Madagascar from its bodies with immediate effect until constitutional order is restored, following a coup that's ousted President Andry Rajoelina. The group previously suspended several other member states following military coups there. They include Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Police have clashed with protesters in Douala, thus the economic hub of Cameroon, after opposition candidate Issa Chiroma Bakri claimed victory in elections held last week. An official outcome is expected to be announced on the 26th of this month. Botswana is enforcing a new rule that requires mining companies to sell a 24% stake in new concessions to local investors if the government chooses not to buy the stake. The rule was first proposed last year as part of draft legislation. And in a significant development for Morocco's aerospace industry, King Mohammed VI and the Crown Prince in the country have attended the foundation stone-laying ceremony. This was held earlier this week. It's for a new aircraft engine complex near Casablanca. The facility will serve as part of the Mid-Park aerospace platform. The remains of Khoi and San descendants that were taken by explorers illegally, unethically in the 19th century are now back in South Africa. They were exhumed without consent in the Northern and Western Cape between 1868 and 1924. They were then left to the University of Glasgow in Scotland by various donors.
The remains arrived in South Africa on Thursday night. Community representatives performed a private cultural ritual meant to receive their ancestors. The University of Glasgow held partial remains of 6 individuals. It also held 2 plaster face casts and a soapstone smoking pipe excavated from a burial site. Before the collection was returned to South Africa, a special repatriation ceremony was held at the university's Memorial Chapel.
This repatriation takes place in a context where more and more museums and governments in the Western world are finally, I would say, taking actions to redress the past injustices that are evidenced in their museums and collections. Not all museums, not all governments, I must say, but we are seeing a significant increase in recent years in support for restitution and repatriation of looted or unethically acquired items in collections.
It's a solemn and historic occasion, but mixed with feels like joy and thanks as well, and one that honours the enduring strength and resilience of your communities, of the peoples here, while acknowledging the painful legacies of Scotland's colonial past. I hope that the rightful return of these ancestral remains marks a meaningful step forward towards restoring dignity to the communities affected and helping them on their journeys towards healing, as we've heard today.
So I want to say to the people of the Ontario Museum and to the University of Glasgow, you've not only brought closure to us, but you've brought honor to your ancestors. You brought honor, the day was a day of infamy. It was a day where they took my people, the people that I'm from, and they brought them here against their will and against the will of their families. And that was a stain on the history of the great Scottish people. But that stain today was cleared because of the actions of the Glasgow University and the Ontarian Museum.
The ancestral remains have been transferred into the care of Oovookoo Museums of South Africa for burial.
So the African continent has a number of seaports that can contribute to strengthening the economy of the continent. The ports can also be used to drive the African Continental Free Trade Area Arrangement or Agreement. Well, today, the Premier of South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province, that's Thamsanqa Ntuli, has been taking us through opportunities available at the Richards Bay Harbour. He spoke to SABC News correspondent Sophie Mokoena.
I looked at Richards Bay. This is gold, Premier. Premier, this is gold. If you bring in infrastructure, the harbour, you bring in tourism, the people of this region can have a better life. What is it that you are doing in this region in terms of utilizing this infrastructure, the harbour, to complement other areas of growth for the economy?
Quite soon we'll have more electricity being produced here. There's an LNG gas, which you know, a multi-billion rand project, and there is a new container terminal to a capacity of 200,000 containers into this side of the province. As you know, this port, the strategic port in Richards Bay, is a deep sea wherein the minerals, in fact, are exported, wherein some are imported. So I think there is a lot that is happening here. We're looking forward even to a new airport. The expansion of the airport, including the ICC, International Convention Center, in the very same area. In terms of tourism, I think KwaZulu-Natal has progressed quite significantly. Recently, I saw just in a very short space of time that 3 million local tourists are visiting Durban alone, and more than 200,000 international tourists in Durban alone. You just imagine when you calculate for the whole of KwaZulu-Natal, and I think you have seen that KwaZulu-Natal is the only province that has saw growth in terms of the GDP with 0.8%. When we say our country grew with 0.8%, we're talking about KwaZulu-Natal. That in fact is pointing to a positive direction in terms of our economy and in terms of the opportunities for our people.
Let's go back to our question of the day. We're asking for your thoughts tonight on the African Union suspending Madagascar following a coup in the country. Here's what some of you have been saying tonight. Tato Molete says that I think the AU should listen to the people of Madagascar, constitutional or unconstitutional. The people know what they want. One here from Native says the African Union was created to sustain the suffering of black people throughout the continent. Kevi says that they don't respect the will of the people. The Madalas, these are old people, are the ones oppressing the masses everywhere. This AU thing doesn't want black people to progress. I'm not going to lie, or excuse me, it's a group of old friends, he says. Another one from X saying suspended and then what? The African Union, what a useless, toothless organization led by useless people, a waste of time. And Hlubi says they must focus on the DRC, that's where their energy should be. Okay, that's last one for now. We'll have a look later and just see what some of you also have to make of the situation in Madagascar, a coup in recent days, and now suspension from African Union programs. Is it the right move? When Unwrap Africa continues tonight, we'll look at the impact of war on children in the DRC. Welcome back to Unwrap Africa. From a small village in the Democratic Republic of Congo to finding refuge in South Africa, Popina Khumanda's journey is one of unimaginable pain, resilience, and ultimately a story of hope. Her book, The Smallest Ones, lays bare the horrors of war through the eyes of a child while celebrating survival, courage and the pursuit of education as a path to healing. And we're fortunate enough this evening to speak to Popina Khumanda to talk about this powerful piece of writing. Popina, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for your time. I wonder what your earliest memory, or yes, in fact, your earliest memory is of that period of war in the DRC as a child, and perhaps when you began to understood that your lives were possibly in danger as a family.
Hi, Thembis. Thank you so much for having me here. At that time, it was when I actually get to understand what is happening, I was questioning, like, does the world really know what is going on with the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo? Is there any help that I can find or someone that can come and help us? But unfortunately, till this day, it's still an ongoing thing. I mean, I'm turning 30 soon. So it started before I was even born. Yes.
And as you say, we know that even at the moment, there is still instability in the east of the DRC. South Africa had become involved there as part of a peacekeeping effort. Some of the South African soldiers killed there as well. Many people displaced. From the time that you were there and when you ultimately came to South Africa, how do you think the periods of conflict compare?
You know, it has gotten worse now, because when we look at just this period of 4 or 5 years, about 4.5 millions of people have died in the DRC. And then about, let's say, 2 million are able to get out and then find refuge in South Africa, in Kenya, or wherever life leads them to. But the crisis is just getting worse each and every year.
And in your experience, you were able to flee with your sister. Give us a sense of what was going on around you at the time. And as you fled as young children, what enabled you to travel all the way and reach South Africa?
You know, as I'm just going back now, and I'm reminded of so much that was going on. There were like soldiers everywhere, and we were not sure which soldier is good or which soldier is bad. We just took the little things that we could find on the roads, and we headed off barefoot to South Africa. We were walking to South Africa. Most of our journey was by foot, and just 2 girls walking.
And why was it just you and your sister? Where was the rest of the family, your parents, perhaps?
My family was in the DRC, and in Kinshasa, and my sister and I were placed in the village to take care of we were farming in the village. So we used to take care of the crops, and then my parents would come, collect it and go sell it in the market in the city.
Right. And then you and your sister then journeyed to South Africa, mostly by foot. Were there people who helped along the way? And why did you know as you were leaving the DRC that this would be your ultimate destination?
Yes, by that time I knew that South Africa would be the ultimate destination. But on our way, we encountered a lot of rape by men, a lot of rape, abuse along the way, because we 2 girls, vulnerable, and we don't have any money. So the best way to get from border to border was to, be sold or just be raped. And it was a tough journey.
You say tough, it sounds absolutely harrowing, Popina. Why revisit that time in your life? And when you revisit it now, how do you process the trauma? How do you reconcile the present day reality with what it took, or what was taken from you, in fact, to get here?
You know, what was taken from me was a childhood where I could experience love, peace, and possibly dream for a better future for myself in an environment where I have absolute right to be in and to thrive in. That was taken away before I could even begin to start dreaming of who I wanted to become and how would I, process this world and receive this world. So when all of that started happening at the age of 5, being raped by rebels, being starved, and just seeing my brothers and sisters being sold in the black market for organs and some being traded off to go work in mines, I was shocked to how cruel the world can be, like how cruel humanity itself can be. And I was wondering, is there anyone out there that can see this and do something about it? So till this day, I am so hurt by what is happening in this world and by what is happening in the DRC, because we have so many children that could be potentially become doctors, engineers, craft a better future for the continent itself, but they are all dying.
It's a tragic situation, made more tragic by the fact that the people in charge don't seem to learn the lessons, right? So you arrived in South Africa at that point in the 2000s. You eventually ended up in Dispatch in the Eastern Cape, I believe. From that point onwards, did you find the soft landing that you were looking for? And how has your life changed post that period?
Regards to experiencing so much cruelty, when I came to South Africa, it was hard. I faced a lot of challenges as well. But the love and support that I received from the community in Dispatch, the children's home itself, was very encouraging, because I was actually weighing where I come from, and what I have at that very moment was that I was given an opportunity to go to school, an opportunity to rebuild and start over again. So that is what kept me going, and understanding that this is not just my life anymore. I'm going to be representing a lot of children that are still stuck in the Democratic Republic of Congo, that have no voices and they have no one to actually tell from their own experience that this is what is happening to us. Yeah.
Popina Khumanda, good to talk to you, author of The Smallest Ones, a harrowing account of war through the lens or the eyes of children who suffered in the 2000s. Sadly, war is still raging in parts of eastern DRC. Popina, thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is Unwrap Africa. Much more still ahead for you on the program this evening. A reminder of the question that we're asking this evening on Unwrap Africa. We're asking for thoughts on the African Union suspending Madagascar following the coup that's removed the government in that country. More of your thoughts, in fact, have just come in. Let's see. One here says the AU has never achieved anything meaningful for African countries. Very soon, many nations may voluntarily leave the African Union. This is Sonabile, who says they are hypocrites benefiting from Western powers. Kojo says double standards. What about the coup in Zimbabwe? Makosini MJ says it depends on who you are. African Union, the cowards, useless for the African continent. And Obiora Utu says the African Union has again shown where its loyalty lies, not with the African people, but with the comfort of the powerful. He says it moves swiftly to condemn a military takeover, yet remains deaf and blind when corrupt civilian regimes loot nations, destroy hope, and silence dissent for decades. Where was the AU when presidents rewrote constitutions to crown themselves kings? Where was the AU when leaders bled their nations dry, trading the future of their people for foreign applause and French coins? Where was the AU when tyranny wore a democratic mask? That's Obiora Utu. Always a reminder that the views expressed do not reflect the views of SABC News, but we do want to hear, as always, your reading of developments on the continent. And now, before we go, our producer, Nonhlanhla Mthembu, has hit the streets again this week, recently visiting the Oovookoo Gallery. That's here in Johannesburg, where they're currently hosting an exhibition featuring the work of African visual artists. Nonhlanhla was able to speak to some of the talented artists and art lovers alike.
We spent some time here with Tunde Oluwa, who shared about the masterpieces that he found interesting at this gallery.
I've come here to find something that I was not aware of in the art scene in South Africa.
This right here is one of the pieces that caught Tunde's eye.
In a way, you could say that he represents Africa that's coming into its own. So I quite like that picture for that reason.
Charles is a seasoned virtual artist who has traveled the world, and he says Africa is where color is.
I'm caught with the colors of Africa. So I love color, and color has an amazing effect on people.
As African artists, there's a lot of history in Africa that we need to touch base on, be it our works or the colors that we use in our works, the stories behind each and every artist's works. And I mean, in contemporary art, everything is shifting.
I live by the idea that as you raise, you lift. It takes a village to raise a child. So it's up to us as seasoned artists, people who have been in the industry for a very long time, to show the youth the world.
African art is received globally and it is wanted globally. Actually, it's what we are told now and then, that African art is making the world go round, actually.
Africa is a center of the world that is about to find its place.
That is how we come to the end of this edition of Unwrap Africa. It's been a pleasure to be with you once again. Standing by is Thulasizwe Simelane with the rest of the G20 Focus team. And tonight, they're asking the question of whether energy security is possible in an insecure world. So that's Thulasizwe Simelane coming up next with G20 Focus. Good night.